Hello, my amazing friends. Welcome back to English Mastery Hub, the place where we turn English learning into an exciting journey. Today, I have something special for you. If you love movies and TV shows, you're going to love this session. Because I'm going to share how I learned English just by watching movies and TV shows, and how you can do it too. I know learning English can feel frustrating sometimes. Textbooks, grammar drills, and endless vocabulary lists can be boring and overwhelming. But what if I told you that you can learn English the fun way, just like native speakers do, by watching your favorite films and series? In this session, I'll take you through the exact techniques I used, the challenges I faced, and the major breakthroughs that helped me become fluent. Plus, I'll give you a step-by-step guide on how to turn your favorite movies and shows into powerful learning tools. So, grab your popcorn, sit back, and get ready for an exciting adventure in English learning. Oh, and before we start, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on powerful tips to improve your English fluency. All right, let's dive in. When I first started learning English, it felt difficult and frustrating. I didn't know where to begin, and everything seemed like a challenge. Every time I opened my textbook, I would read the same grammar rules over and over, trying to understand them. Sometimes I thought I was getting the rules right, but when I tried to speak, the words didn't come out as easily as I had hoped. I also spent hours memorizing vocabulary words, thinking that the more words I knew, the better my English would be. But even with all this vocabulary, I still had trouble understanding when people spoke English. I could not keep up with conversations, and it felt like everyone was speaking too fast for me. It was frustrating because I couldn't use the words I had learned in real conversations. I felt like there was a gap between what I knew and what I could actually understand or say. One of the biggest challenges I faced was when I watched an English movie for the first time without subtitles. I had watched movies before with subtitles, but this time I wanted to test myself. I thought, if I can understand the movie without subtitles, that means I'm improving. So I turned off the subtitles and started the movie. It was a disaster. The characters spoke so quickly, and their words blended together. The voices were fast, and the words didn't sound like anything I had studied. They used slang and idioms, things I had never seen in my textbooks. It was like they were speaking a completely different language. I only understood a few words here and there. Sometimes I could catch the name of a character or a simple word like yes or no, but most of the time, I was lost. The sentences sounded so different from what I had learned in my classes. I couldn't keep up with the conversations, and I felt hopeless. At first, I thought that maybe I wasn't good at English or that I would never be able to understand it. I started to feel like I had made a mistake in trying to learn a language that seemed so difficult. But then, something changed. I realized that the way people speak in movies and TV shows is how native speakers really talk. It was different from the textbook English I was used to learning. It was real, natural, and full of expressions and sounds that I had never been taught. This realization changed everything for me. I understood that if I wanted to learn English the way native speakers spoke, I had to listen to them speak in a natural way, not just study rules in books. That's when I decided to change my approach. I stopped relying only on textbooks and began learning English through movies and TV shows. At first, it wasn't easy. Watching a movie without understanding everything was still difficult, but I didn't give up. I watched movies with subtitles in my native language at first, so I could follow the story. Once I was more familiar with the plot, I switched to English subtitles. This helped me understand what the characters were saying and connect the spoken words with their written forms. I began to notice that watching these movies and shows helped me improve my listening skills. I could hear the words and phrases in the way they were used in real situations. It wasn't just about learning grammar rules or vocabulary. It was about hearing how people communicated in everyday life. I also started to pick up on expressions and slang words that I hadn't learned in class. Another important thing I realized was that the more I watched, the easier it became to understand. The sentences started to sound familiar, and I could follow conversations more easily. It wasn't just about learning vocabulary anymore. It was about understanding how native speakers use those words in different situations. After a few months of learning this way, I started to notice real changes. I could follow conversations in movies without subtitles. I could understand jokes and expressions that I had never understood before. I was able to use some of the phrases and slang I heard in real-life conversations. Slowly, I started to feel more confident speaking in English. I no longer felt like I was only learning from a book. I felt like I was learning in a way that was more natural and enjoyable. Now, I know that learning English through movies and TV shows isn't the only way to learn a language, but it definitely made a big difference for me. It gave me a fun and practical way to learn that I enjoyed. Watching movies became a part of my learning routine, and it helped me improve my speaking, listening, and vocabulary. It wasn't just about memorizing rules or words, it was about learning how to communicate like a real English speaker. Looking back, I realized that those early struggles were a necessary part of my journey. They taught me that learning a language takes time, patience, and the willingness to try new methods. If I had given up when things were hard, I wouldn't have discovered how powerful movies and TV shows could be for learning English. If you're just starting out and feel like learning English is difficult, don't worry. It's okay to struggle at first. The key is to find ways to make learning enjoyable and practical. Maybe watching movies in English can help you too, just like it helped me. It may take time, but with practice and patience, you will start to see progress. Keep going, and you'll find the learning process much more fun and rewarding. Now, every time I watch a movie or TV show in English, I see it as another opportunity to improve my skills. The language feels more natural, and I feel more connected to the characters and the world around me. It's no longer just about studying. It's about enjoying the language as part of everyday life. If you're just starting your English journey, try watching a movie in English today. Start with subtitles, and don't be afraid if you don't understand everything. Little by little, you'll begin to notice improvements in your listening and speaking skills. Just remember to be patient with yourself and have fun along the way. When I first started learning English with movies, I made a big mistake. I thought that just watching movies for fun would help me learn English. I enjoyed the movies, of course, but I didn't pay attention to the language. I didn't try to learn from the words the characters were saying. I just watched for entertainment, and because of that, I wasn't improving. I watched many movies and TV shows, but my English skills weren't getting better. After some time, I realized that I had to do more than just watch. I needed to be active in my learning process. That's when I discovered a much better way to use movies for learning English. Instead of just watching the movie for fun, I started to pay attention to how the characters were speaking and the words they were using. I began to focus on understanding the language more deeply. So I developed a step-by-step process to help me learn English with movies, and I want to share it with you. Step 1. Choosing the right movies and shows. The first thing I learned is that not all movies and TV shows are great for learning English. Some movies use very complicated language or speak too quickly, which can make it harder to understand. So, I had to be careful about which movies and shows I chose to watch. I started with animated movies because they often use simple language that is easy to understand. Movies like Finding Nemo and Toy Story were perfect. The characters in these movies speak clearly and the language is simple, making it a great choice for learners like me. Plus, animated movies often have a slower pace, so it's easier to catch every word. I also enjoyed the fun and colorful animation, which made learning even more enjoyable. Another great type of show for learning English is sitcoms. Shows like Friends and The Big Bang Theory are perfect because they focus on everyday conversations. The characters in these shows talk about things that happen in real life, like going to work, meeting friends, or dealing with family problems. The language is very natural, and the conversations are not too fast. Sitcoms often include humor too, which makes them fun to watch while learning. While action movies are exciting, they aren't always the best for learning English. I loved watching action-packed films with lots of explosions and fights, but there wasn't enough dialogue for me to really learn anything. The characters in action movies don't spend as much time talking as they do in animated movies or sitcoms. So, I decided to save action movies for when I wanted to relax and just enjoy the film without worrying too much about learning English. Step 2. Using subtitles correctly. Once I had chosen the right movies and TV shows, the next step was using subtitles correctly. I quickly realized that subtitles could be a powerful tool to help me learn. At first, I used English subtitles to connect the words I was hearing with the text on the screen. This helped me understand the language better because I could read the words and hear how they were pronounced at the same time. But simply watching with subtitles wasn't enough. I wanted to make sure I was really learning, so I came up with a method that helped me get the most out of the subtitles. First watch. I watched the movie or show with English subtitles. During this watch, I focused on the dialogue. I tried to follow along with the characters and read the subtitles carefully. This step helped me learn new words and understand how sentences are formed in real conversations. I made sure to pay attention to pronunciation and stress so I could practice speaking the words correctly later. Second watch. After watching the movie with subtitles, I watched it again, but this time without any subtitles. This step was a little harder, but it was very helpful. Watching without subtitles forced me to understand the words just by listening. I had to pay closer attention to the sounds and try to catch as many words as possible. If I didn't understand something, I would rewind and listen again. This helped train my ears to understand spoken English without relying on the text. Third watch. After watching the movie twice, I would watch it again, but this time I would repeat and shadow the sentences. Shadowing means that I would repeat the sentences out loud, trying to match the pronunciation and rhythm of the characters. This step is important because it helps improve your speaking skills. By repeating the sentences, I could practice my pronunciation and learn how to speak more naturally. It was like I was speaking along with the characters in the movie. This technique, which I call the 3-watch method, helped me a lot. It trained my ears to understand spoken English better, and it also helped me improve my speaking and pronunciation. By repeating what the characters were saying, I began to sound more like a native speaker, and I started to feel more confident speaking English myself. Step 3. Focusing on vocabulary and phrases. Another important part of learning English with movies is paying attention to vocabulary and phrases. While watching the movies, I made sure to write down new words or phrases that I didn't know. After watching, I would look up their meanings and practice using them in my own sentences. By doing this, I learned how to use words in the correct context, and I started to build my vocabulary more quickly. Movies are a great way to learn useful phrases that native speakers use every day. For example, in sitcoms like Friends, you can learn common expressions like, "What's up?" or "How's it going?" These are things people say in normal conversations, but they may not be in your textbooks. Learning these phrases from movies helped me sound more like a native speaker. Step 4. Listening to different accents. One thing I really liked about watching movies and TV shows was that I could hear different accents and ways of speaking. In movies, you can hear English spoken in different accents like American, British, Australian, and more. This was a great way to improve my listening skills because I learned to understand different kinds of English. For example, in British movies or shows, the characters might use different words or speak with a different rhythm than in American movies. By listening to a variety of accents, I learned to understand English better, no matter where it came from. This made me feel more confident because I knew I could understand different English speakers in real life. Step 5. Using repetition to reinforce learning. Finally, I found that repetition was key to improving my English. The more I watched movies and TV shows, the more familiar I became with the language. I repeated words, phrases, and sentences over and over until they became part of my memory. Every time I watched a movie, I would hear new words and practice saying them. The more I repeated, the more confident I became. Repetition also helped me remember important grammar structures. I could hear how sentences were formed and how native speakers used grammar in real conversations. This made me more comfortable using these structures in my own speaking and writing. Step 6. Enjoying the process. The most important thing I learned about using movies to learn English is that it should be fun. If you enjoy what you're watching, you'll learn more easily. I always tried to choose movies and shows that I liked, so I would stay motivated to keep watching. Learning English through movies doesn't have to feel like work. It can be something you enjoy doing every day. The more fun you have, the more you'll learn without even realizing it. So, if you want to improve your English with movies, remember these steps. Choose the right movies, use subtitles in the right way, focus on vocabulary and phrases, listen to different accents, repeat what you hear, and most importantly, have fun. By following these steps, you'll be well on your way to improving your English skills through movies. In the next chapter, I'll share more advanced tips on how to keep learning and improving your English with movies. Keep watching, keep practicing, and enjoy the process. When I started learning English, I realized that improving my speaking and pronunciation was one of the most important skills I needed to work on. At first, I was nervous about speaking because I wasn't sure if I sounded like a native speaker. But over time, I discovered that watching movies could help me improve my speaking without even trying too hard. I want to share with you how I did it. One of the best things about watching movies and TV shows was that I could hear native speakers talk in a way that textbooks or lessons couldn't teach me. The way they spoke was natural, fast, and full of expressions that made their English sound real. I didn't have to memorize complicated rules. Instead, I just listened, repeated, and learned. Shadowing, repeating what characters say. One of the most effective techniques I used to improve my pronunciation was shadowing. Shadowing is when you pause the movie and repeat the lines the characters say, trying to match their tone, rhythm, and pronunciation. It's like you are shadowing them while they speak. For example, one of my favorite scenes in Friends is when Joey says, "How you doin'?" It's a simple sentence, but it's said in a very specific way. Joey doesn't say it slowly or clearly. Instead, it's fast, and he uses a special tone that makes the phrase sound more casual and fun. So, every time I heard him say it, I would pause the movie and repeat it exactly the same way. I would make sure I matched his tone, rhythm, and pronunciation. At first, it was difficult. I couldn't always get the tone or the speed right, but with practice, it became easier. I started to feel more comfortable with speaking, and my pronunciation began to improve. I continued doing this with many other sentences from the show, especially ones I found interesting or that were used frequently. Over time, my speaking became more natural. By shadowing characters, I learned how to speak in the same way they did. This technique helped me understand how native speakers change their tone and pronunciation in different situations. Sometimes, the way someone says a word can change the meaning of the sentence, and shadowing helped me understand these small but important differences. Copying native speakers' expressions. Another important thing I learned from movies was how native speakers don't always say words clearly or slowly. In textbooks, you usually see words written out clearly, but in real life, people often speak quickly, slur their words, or use shortcuts. By watching movies, I was able to pick up these real-life expressions, which made my speech sound more natural. For example, when native speakers say, "What do you want?" it often sounds more like, "What do you want?" The words blend together, and it sounds quicker than the way we might say it in a textbook. By listening carefully, I started recognizing these kinds of changes in how words were said, and I copied them. Another example is the phrase, "going to," which is often shortened to "gonna" in casual speech. In movies, I heard characters saying things like, "I'm gonna go to the store," instead of, "I am going to go to the store." These small changes made the sentence sound more natural and less formal. By copying these expressions, I learned how native speakers speak in everyday conversations. Movies and TV shows are full of these real-life expressions, and by watching them carefully, I could hear how native speakers communicate in a more casual and relaxed way. Over time, I started using these expressions in my own speech, which made me sound more like a native speaker. It also helped me understand the way English is used in real conversations, rather than just textbook examples. Listening to the rhythm of the language. One of the things that made English different from my native language was the rhythm. In English, the stress on certain words is very important, and it changes the meaning of a sentence. For example, in the sentence, I didn't say you stole the money. You can stress different words to change who you're talking about. It could mean that you didn't say it, or it could mean that you didn't say the person stole the money. Stressing different words changes the meaning, and I had to learn to listen for these changes. Watching movies helped me understand the rhythm of the language. I paid attention to how native speakers stressed certain words and how they spoke in a flowing way. It wasn't just about individual words, it was about how those words came together to create a natural sound. By practicing with movies, I started to get the hang of the rhythm and started speaking with more confidence. Understanding connected speech. Connected speech is when words blend together in spoken English, and this was something that really helped me improve my speaking. In movies, I could hear how native speakers connect their words to make their speech sound smoother and faster. For example, instead of saying, I am going to the store, a native speaker might say, I'm gonna the store. The words run together, making it sound more natural. At first, this was hard to understand. When I read a sentence in a textbook, each word was separate, but in movies, the words were connected. To understand this, I had to listen carefully to how the words flowed together. Once I got used to it, I could hear connected speech in real conversations, and it made it easier for me to understand people when they spoke quickly. By watching movies and repeating what I heard, I began to speak more naturally and confidently. I wasn't just learning vocabulary and grammar, I was learning how English sounded in everyday life. I could hear how sentences were connected, and I learned to say them the same way. Mimicking different accents. Another way movies helped me improve my speaking was by exposing me to different accents. In real life, English is spoken in many different ways depending on where you're from. I wanted to be able to understand all kinds of English, so I watched movies with different accents. For example, I watched some British films to hear how English sounds in the UK. I listened to the way words are pronounced differently, and I tried to mimic the British accent. I also watched Australian movies to hear how English sounds there. By hearing different accents, I improved my ability to understand and speak English in various ways. While I didn't try to change my accent completely, listening to different accents helped me improve my overall understanding of English and made me more confident in my speaking. It's important to be able to understand different ways English is spoken, and watching movies with different accents helped me do that. Practicing with friends. Finally, after I improved my speaking and pronunciation by watching movies, I wanted to practice with other people. I found that talking to friends, whether they were native speakers or learners like me, was a great way to put what I had learned into practice. I would try using the phrases and expressions I learned from movies in real conversations. Sometimes my friends would help me with pronunciation or correct my mistakes, which was very helpful. By practicing with others, I continued to improve my speaking skills and became more confident. I realized that learning English wasn't just about watching movies. It was also about using what I learned in real conversations. In the end, movies helped me improve my speaking and pronunciation in ways that were fun and natural. I didn't just memorize words from a textbook. I learned how to speak like a native speaker. by shadowing the characters, copying their expressions, listening to the rhythm of the language, and practicing with others, I became a better speaker and felt more confident in my English. In the next chapter, I'll share some tips on how to keep improving your English by using other fun and easy methods. Keep practicing, and soon you'll notice your English improving every day. One of the best things about learning English through movies and TV shows is that it helps you expand your vocabulary in a natural way. In school, I used to memorize lists of words, but they didn't always help me when I tried to speak. What I realized is that to really learn English, I needed to hear the words used in real conversations, just like native speakers do. Movies and TV shows are perfect for this because they show you how people actually use words and phrases in everyday life. For example, when I started watching Friends, I learned many fun expressions that I would never have learned from a textbook. In one episode, Ross says, "I'm stuffed," after eating a big meal. In the show, it's used to mean, "I'm very full." I had heard the word stuffed before, but I had no idea that it could mean full after eating. Another expression I learned was break a leg. This one confused me at first because it sounds like a bad thing to say to someone. But in the show, I found out that it means good luck. It was interesting because in real life, people say this to wish someone good luck, even though it sounds like it's about to hurt them. These kinds of phrases are not the types of things you'll find in textbooks. Textbooks usually teach you formal language, but in real conversations, people use words and expressions that make English more fun and easy to understand. Watching TV shows helped me learn these expressions, and I started using them in my own conversations. The trick that helped me remember: new words. When I heard a new word or phrase, I didn't just write it down in my notebook and forget about it later. I developed a simple habit to help me remember it. Here's what I did. Pause the movie. Whenever I heard a new word or expression, I paused the movie to think about it. It gave me a moment to focus on the word and really understand what it meant. Write down the word. After pausing, I would write the word or phrase down in a notebook. Writing it helped me remember it better because it made the word more real to me. I also wrote the meaning and example sentences to help me remember how to use it. Try to use it in a sentence. This was the most important part. After learning a new word, I tried to use it in my own sentence. For example, when I heard "I'm stuffed" in a TV show after someone finished a big meal, I used it the next time I ate too much. I said, "Wow, I'm stuffed," after a big dinner. Using the word right away helped it stick in my memory. This simple habit made a big difference in my learning. I wasn't just memorizing random words. I was learning words in real-life situations, and I was using them right away. It made learning new vocabulary fun and practical. Why context matters. One of the biggest reasons why learning from TV shows works so well is that it gives you words in context. When you see words used in a sentence or conversation, it's much easier to understand their meaning. For example, in a show like Friends, characters often use the phrase "break a leg" to wish someone good luck before an important event. Watching them say this helped me understand that break a leg isn't something bad. It's actually a good thing to say to someone. If I had just seen break a leg in a dictionary, I would have thought it was about hurting someone. But by seeing it in the context of a conversation, I understood the true meaning. The same thing happened with the phrase, "I'm stuffed." In a textbook, I might have learned that stuffed means full, but hearing it in a real conversation made the meaning clearer. Context helps you learn how to use words correctly. It shows you when to say them and in what situation. Watching TV shows is one of the best ways to learn vocabulary and context because it lets you see how native speakers use words in real life. Learning slang and idioms TV shows and movies are also great for teaching you slang and idioms. These are words or phrases that native speakers use in informal conversations, but they are not always easy to understand if you're learning English from a textbook. Slang and idioms often don't make sense when translated word for word. For example, in Friends, I heard the character Chandler say, "Could you be any more?" This is a common way of exaggerating something. If someone says, "Could you be any more annoying?" they are saying that the person is very annoying. This is an idiom that I would never have learned from a textbook. Another example of slang is when Joey says, "How you doin'?" It's a funny and casual way of saying hello or how are you. It's something people say in real life, but it doesn't make sense if you translate the words literally. By watching TV shows like Friends, I learned many slang phrases that I now use when I speak with others. Learning slang and idioms from TV shows is a fun way to make your English sound more natural. It helps you speak like a native speaker and understand what people are saying when they use these expressions. Building vocabulary with different genres. One of the great things about TV shows is that there are so many different types of shows. Depending on the genre, you can learn different kinds of vocabulary. For example, if you watch a medical drama like Grey's Anatomy, you'll learn words related to medicine and hospitals. If you watch a crime show like CSI, you'll learn words related to police work and investigations. Watching shows from different genres helps you build a diverse vocabulary. For me, I liked watching a mix of shows. I would watch comedies like Friends to learn casual language, but I also watched action movies to learn action-related vocabulary. Sometimes I watched news shows or documentaries to learn formal and academic vocabulary. Watching different types of shows helped me learn words that were useful in different situations. Making connections between words. One thing I loved about learning vocabulary through TV shows was that I could see how words and phrases connected to each other. In a show like Friends, characters would often use the same expressions in different situations. For example, they would say, "I'm stuffed," after a meal, but they also used, "I'm starving," when they were hungry. These words were related because they both describe feelings about food, and seeing them together helped me remember them. I also learned new words by hearing similar ones in different shows. For example, after learning the word stuffed, I started hearing full and satisfied in other shows. These words all mean the same thing, but they are used in different ways. Learning them in context helped me see how they connected and how to use them correctly. Using the words I learned. The best part of learning vocabulary from TV shows was using the words in my own conversations. Every time I learned a new phrase, I tried to use it in my daily life. I would practice saying things like, "I'm stuffed," after a big meal, or "break a leg," before a friend's performance. It made learning fun because I could use the words right away. By using the vocabulary I learned from TV shows, I was able to remember it better. It also helped me feel more confident in speaking because I knew I was using real, natural English that native speakers use. In conclusion, watching movies and TV shows helped me expand my vocabulary in a fun and natural way. Instead of memorizing lists of words, I learned new words by hearing them used in real conversations. I used simple habits like pausing the movie, writing down new words, and practicing them in sentences. This method made learning vocabulary easier and more enjoyable. Plus, I was able to learn slang, idioms, and expressions that I wouldn't have learned in a textbook. Watching TV shows was one of the best ways to improve my vocabulary and make my English sound more natural. Learning English through movies was an exciting journey, but it wasn't always smooth. At first, there were many challenges. I remember feeling frustrated when I couldn't understand fast dialogue. The characters in the movies spoke quickly, and their words seemed to blur together. I also had a hard time understanding some accents. Some actors spoke in ways I had never heard before, and I didn't know what they were saying. Another problem was slang. Movies and TV shows often use slang words or phrases that I had never learned in class, and I had no idea what they meant. But despite these challenges, I didn't give up. Instead, I decided to change my approach to make learning easier and more effective. Here are the steps that helped me overcome those early frustrations. Starting with easy content. At first, I chose movies and shows that were easy to understand. Animated movies like Finding Nemo and Toy Story were great because the dialogue was clear, simple, and slow. The characters in these movies used easy words, and the scenes often focused on simple conversations. Watching animated movies helped me get used to the language without feeling overwhelmed. Sitcoms like Friends and The Big Bang Theory were also good because the characters spoke in everyday language. These shows had conversations about things I could relate to, like going out with friends, family relationships, and work. Starting with these types of content made the learning process feel less difficult. Rewatching the same movie multiple times. At first, I didn't understand everything in the movie, and that was okay. I learned that it was important not to get discouraged. Instead of trying to understand every word in one go, I started rewatching the same movies and episodes. The first time I watched a movie, I focused on listening to the dialogue and reading the subtitles. The second time, I tried to understand more without the subtitles. By the third or fourth time, I began to catch words and phrases I missed before. Each time, I understood more and more, and I felt like I was making real progress. Rewatching helped me build confidence and gave me more chances to listen to the language, not worrying about understanding everything. At the beginning of my journey, I wanted to understand every word and every sentence, but I quickly learned that it's okay to miss some things. Native speakers often speak quickly, use slang, or talk over each other, and it's normal to not catch everything. I stopped worrying about understanding every single word. Instead, I focused on the main ideas and the context of the conversation. I learned to enjoy the process of listening and trying to figure out the meaning of what was being said, even if I didn't understand every word. It was more important for me to understand the general meaning than to get frustrated about missing some details. Gradually, I started understanding more and more, even if I didn't know all the words. Being patient with myself. Learning a language takes time, and it's important to be patient. I realized that I wouldn't become fluent overnight. There were days when I felt like I wasn't improving and I almost wanted to give up. But I reminded myself that progress in language learning is often slow. I had to trust the process. Little by little, I could feel myself improving. I understood more of what I heard, and I could speak more clearly. I started feeling more confident in my ability to learn English through movies. I realized that even when it felt difficult, I was still learning. The key was to keep going, even on the tough days. Staying motivated. There were many times when I felt discouraged, especially when I didn't understand something or when my progress seemed slow. But I found ways to stay motivated. First, I reminded myself of why I was learning English in the first place. I wanted to be able to speak with native speakers, enjoy movies without subtitles, and understand the world better through the language. I also celebrated small victories. Every time I learned a new word or understood a sentence I had missed before, I felt proud of myself. It helped keep me motivated to keep going. Another thing that helped was setting small goals. Instead of thinking about fluency as something far in the future, I focused on little goals, like learning 5 new words each week or understanding a particular scene without subtitles. These small goals kept me moving forward, and they made the learning process more rewarding. Using other resources. Although movies and TV shows were my main way of learning, I also used other resources to help me. I listened to podcasts and audiobooks, which helped improve my listening skills. I practiced speaking with friends who spoke English, and I also used language learning apps. Using a variety of methods kept things interesting and helped me continue learning even when I wasn't watching movies. I also joined online communities of English learners where we could support each other and share tips. This gave me more motivation to keep going, knowing that others were on the same journey as me. Staying positive. Learning a language can be hard, but it's important to stay positive. I reminded myself that every mistake I made was a part of the learning process. Instead of focusing on what I didn't know, I focused on how much I had learned. I kept telling myself that mistakes were just steps toward improvement. When I felt frustrated, I took a break and did something else for a while. Then, I would come back to watching movies with fresh eyes and a positive attitude. Staying positive helped me avoid burnout and kept me excited about learning. Enjoying the journey. The most important lesson I learned was to enjoy the journey. At first, learning English with movies felt difficult and frustrating, but over time I began to enjoy it more. I started looking forward to my movie sessions, and I found joy in seeing my progress. Even when I didn't understand everything, I knew I was learning something valuable. I realized that language learning isn't just about reaching the final goal. It's about enjoying the process and celebrating the small victories along the way. In the end, overcoming the challenges of learning English through movies was all about adjusting my strategy and staying patient. It wasn't always easy, but I knew that if I kept going, I would improve. Every time I watched a movie, I learned something new. The more I practiced, the better I got. Now, I feel much more confident in my English skills, and I can watch movies without subtitles, understand native speakers better, and use what I've learned in real-life conversations. The key is to never give up and to keep going, even when it feels hard. As long as you stay motivated and patient, your English will keep getting better. After months of watching movies and TV shows, I had a breakthrough moment that completely changed how I saw my progress. One day, I was watching The Big Bang Theory, and something surprising happened. As I watched, I realized I understood everything without needing subtitles. I could follow every conversation, even the fast ones. The jokes made sense, and the characters' words were clear to me. For the first time, I wasn't translating in my head. What amazed me the most was that I had started thinking in English. This was a big step. Before this moment, I had to translate everything into my own language to understand it. But now, when Sheldon made a funny comment or someone said something important, I didn't need to stop and think, what does that mean in my language? I just understood it directly in English. It felt like a whole new level of fluency. This was my breakthrough moment. I finally understood that I had made real progress. I could enjoy movies, TV shows, and conversations in English without relying on subtitles or translations. I was thinking in English naturally, just like a native speaker. This moment made me realize that learning English through movies wasn't just about improving vocabulary or grammar. It was about immersing myself in the language until it became a natural part of my thinking. This was the real magic of learning through entertainment, learning without even realizing it. Looking back, I could see how all the small steps added up to this big change. The hours of watching movies, the repeated listening, and practicing shadowing, all of it had paid off. It wasn't just about memorizing words or following rules. It was about understanding the language and becoming comfortable with it. Over time, I had stopped being a learner who needed to translate everything, and I had become someone who could think in English without thinking about it. So, how can you experience a breakthrough like mine? It's simple. Keep practicing, keep watching, and keep following the techniques I've shared with you. But most importantly, be patient with yourself. Learning a new language doesn't happen overnight, and there will be times when it feels slow. However, each step you take is helping you get closer to fluency. When you start watching shows and movies in English, you might not understand everything right away. But as time goes on, you'll notice that you start understanding more and more. You'll begin to recognize words and phrases that you didn't know before. Soon, you'll catch the jokes, understand the conversations, and even think in English. This is how language learning works, slowly, step by step, until one day you realize that you've made it. And when that happens, you'll feel a huge sense of pride and accomplishment. You'll know that all the hard work was worth it, and you'll be able to enjoy English in a way you never imagined. No more worrying about subtitles, no more feeling lost in conversations. Just you, thinking, understanding, and speaking in English. It's an amazing feeling, and I want you to experience it too. To help you get there, here's a quick reminder of the techniques I used to learn English through movies and TV shows. Choose the right content. Start with movies and shows that are easy to understand. Animated movies and sitcoms are perfect for beginners. Use subtitles. Correctly. Watch first with English subtitles to understand the words. Then, try watching without subtitles to challenge yourself. Shadowing. Practice by repeating what the characters say. This will help improve your pronunciation and speaking skills. Learn vocabulary. In context, write down new words and make sure you use them in your own sentences. This will help you remember them better. These techniques helped me improve my English without feeling like I was studying. I used entertainment to learn in a fun and natural way. And if you do the same, you'll start noticing progress too. Remember, learning English is a journey. You don't have to rush. Enjoy the process, celebrate small victories, and keep going. One day, just like me, you'll have your breakthrough moment. If you're ready to start this journey, go ahead and grab your favorite movie or TV show and begin. Keep watching, keep practicing, and don't forget to be patient with yourself. You'll get there. I hope this session has inspired you to make English learning fun and exciting. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to English Mastery Hub for more practical tips and motivational lessons. Until next time, keep learning, keep practicing, and remember, you've got this.